Next, for questions, I will go to Representative Ed Case. I will recognize him now and thank you. Mr. Case, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, for this hearing, very important hearing. And to President Nez and Council Member Talusi, I send you greetings and aloha from the indigenous peoples of Hawaii, the Native Hawaiians, who are standing with you during this very difficult time, especially for the Navajo Nation. The Native Hawaiians have been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, but not nearly to the extent that you are dealing with it there in Navajo Nation. But I know that they would want me to extend to you their thoughts and prayers. I think that this hearing is important because not only is our goal here, I believe, to provide for the safety of those that visit our national parks and work in our national parks, and those who live in and around our national parks, and frankly, the safety of the folks that all of the above have to go back to, be in contact with. So those procedures in terms of premature opening, it seems to me I'm on the same page as everybody else here. But I think also, does this not offer us an opportunity to perhaps rethink our national parks and to reopen them better than they were, more safe, a heightened visitor experience, a better overall environment? And have you given thought to that kind of advocacy in our national park system? In my home state of Hawaii, a particular area of great concern are tour helicopter overflights. Of course, that's a major issue for the Grand Canyon, where this whole issue really came to the forefront decades ago. And we have, of course, have a number of federal laws that are trying to deal with that. We just had a major federal appeals court in DC decision out of a case that arose in Hawaii, requiring the National Park Service and the Federal Aviation Administration to develop air tour management plans for the 16, I think it was, targeted high risk, high volume national parks across the country. FAA and NPS had dragged their feet on those for decades. Here in Hawaii, we have two beautiful national parks in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and Haleakala National Park, which happen to be the #1 and #2 tour helicopter overflight parks in the entire country. And there was just a study released in the Journal of Park and Recreation Administration entitled Special Issue on Innovation Methodologies in Park and Recreation Management, published online May 5th, 2020. This was actually a study of systematic study of automatic dependent surveillance technology on helicopters that track them spatially. So, exact location, exact altitudes, and found that over 50% of the tour helicopters at Haleakala were violating some form of agreement. And so the question for me, and perhaps this is best directed to Mr. Francis or Mr. Puskar, does this give an opportunity for the nonprofits and folks that care very much about our national parks to not only strengthen the safety side of things, but the overall experience side of things? And have you pursued any of those options through your nonprofit organizations and or the National Park Service?
Sure, we have. And I sympathize with your helicopter overflight issue. I worked in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park for 11 years. We had the very same issue. Helicopters would fly so low that it would blow the hats off of hikers along the trails. And after many years of debate, an ordinance was passed. But with regard to safety, years ago, when John Jarvis was our director, he started a new program called Operational Leadership. That model required the National Park Service to assess every task that was being performed, and that if the risk couldn't be sufficiently mitigated, an employee would not have to do the task. That kind of analysis is obviously not been done during this pandemic. Everybody should have the opportunity to have their tasks be evaluated and a reasonable amount of safety provided to each and every person. In a place like the Great Smokies or any of the national parks, Grand Canyon, Yellowstone, Yosemite, one of the challenges is that we don't have the staffing anymore that we once had. We've lost thousands of employees. The law enforcement ranger function has lost over 20% of its staff over the past 11 years. And so when you're trying to manage epidemic, if you're trying to manage visitation, too many people, if you're trying to manage social distancing, you know, and you're trying to cover 500,000 acres and 900 miles of trails, it's just not possible. And the way the parks are designed, it brings people together, such as the South Rim of the Grand Canyon, where you go to a parking lot, you know, everybody wants to see down inside the canyon. And so with thousands and thousands of people coming every day, people are going to come in close contact with each other. And this idea that the public is going to take care of their own safety has not been demonstrated. People are coming to national parks in large numbers. And I'm sure you're seeing visitation in Hawaii. And boy, I love Haleakala. What a great place. But people are going to get too close and they're not wearing masks. And the National Park Service safety plan is not requiring them to do so. You know, when I go to the local grocery store, I can't get in the door without wearing a mask. And so those kinds of safeguards, I mean, just consider where all your visitors are coming from. You don't know where they are. You don't know if they've been infected. You don't know if they've had any training. You don't know if they've prepared before they arrive. But more has to be done. And at the Grand Canyon, I know for a fact that they were asked to open before their safety plan was created. And so we have been asking for safety plans from every park to be made available to the public. But you can imagine what the answer has been. No answer. We've got to do something about the being able to get information from the parks in this department.
Appreciate that very much, Mr. Francis. And Dan, my time is up, so I apologize for that. I'd love to continue this conversation with you outside the hearing. Chair Holland, I would ask unanimous consent that the report that I referenced be entered into the record of this hearing.
Without objection.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman.